Guys, good morning. It's early morning here, and yeah, I just woke up. So, welcome to Parvez's Trade. And I thought for the first episode today, I'll talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's basically related to being a career man versus being a businessman, right? And I'm sure all of you have faced this choice at some point in your life, right? Whether it was maybe in your early 20s, or maybe later on for some of you guys in your life, you had to choose between whether you want to be career man for the rest of your life, or do you want to get into business and be a businessman? And yeah, let's talk about it. So I think the first thing that people should understand is that doing a 9 to 5 job and like, so here's the thing. First thing is the job environment has changed rapidly. Okay, the job environment that your grandparents worked in, your parents worked in, no longer exist. Okay, it's more competitive, it's more cutthroat, it's more artificial. Okay, there's not that family friendly vibe anymore in any job. And the reason is because the number of new jobs that are being created are nowhere near the number of fresh graduates that are coming out of university every year. It's really that simple. Especially in Western countries. I mean, Western countries have to deal with fresh graduates from their own universities, graduates coming as immigrants from foreign universities. So the competition's even higher in Western countries. And yeah, so here's the thing, guys. Like, I'll just give you a simple example. Let's talk about Canada. The Canadian, I believe, the third quarter GDP, sorry, job number report came out a few days ago. So Canada added net, I believe, around 60,000 jobs. And that's a quarterly report. So a quarter is basically 4 months, right? And yeah, so they added around 60,000 jobs in 4 months. So a quarter of 12 months would be a quarter of a year is 3 months. So they added 60,000 jobs, new jobs in 3 months in Canada, most recently. How many people graduated from the university in those 3 months? How many people graduate from Canadian universities every year? I went to University of Calgary. I can tell you, just in my engineering batch, we had close to a few thousand graduation on graduation day. So a few thousand people graduated in 1 year just in engineering. So you can easily estimate that 10,000 people graduated in that year in University of Calgary, one university. And now you add up how many universities there are in Canada. Well, there are at least 10 major. And you keep adding them up, you get to around at least close to a million new people graduating, fresh graduate every year. Okay. And how many people, how many jobs are being added? If you had 60,000 jobs in 3 months, you multiply that by four, you get around a quarter of a million, 240,000 jobs, right? So you're, I mean, a million fresh graduates is a very conservative estimate. So you have a million fresh graduate coming out of Canadian universities, and then you have just 250,000 jobs, net jobs. Again, a very high-end, aggressive estimate for net jobs. Okay, actual net jobs are much lower, especially in the skilled industries. Most of the new jobs are actually in part-time industries. But still, you're short of 750,000 jobs. And then on top of that, there are a lot of these small colleges and, apprenticeship, and then immigrants coming in with their degrees from abroad. And you understand where the problem comes from. More and more people of the new generation, the young generations, are going to university compared to their parents' generation or their great grandparent or grandparent generation. But the rate at which new jobs are being created is nowhere anywhere near as high as the rate at which people are graduating from these universities. Okay, that's the fundamental reason why you're having this job crisis around the world. So many young people unemployed. Like the Gen Z revolution in Bangladesh. The main reason was because the Gen Z people, fresh graduates, don't have jobs. And the reason they don't have jobs is because all of them went to university. Well, in the past, what would happen is the smartest person in a family would go to university. But yeah, in the new generations, not just in Bangladesh, but in many countries, in Western countries as well, everyone goes to university. Smart, dumb, talented, not talented, ambitious, not ambitious, doesn't matter. Go to university, get a degree. And what's the result? You have all these graduates with such high dreams, but the number of new job creation is nowhere near to keep up with the needs of these fresh graduates. Okay. And yeah, that's one of the reasons I took a break from my career. And don't get me wrong, like I've received pushbacks for this. People have told me, you quit a good job in trading, you're lucky, people don't get a job, blah, blah, blah. Look, my idea about doing anything is whether it's sustainable. Okay, it's not about what I have now, it's about whether it's sustainable. Okay. And the problem is people think that, okay, maybe there's too much competition out there in the job market, you know, maybe all these fresh graduates are not getting a good job. Whatever, I don't care. I have a job, it's not my problem. But it is your problem, even if you have a job, because the environment is changing. Okay. So uh, when you have such huge imbalance between supply of labor and demand for labor, then the people who are already employed, they are under immense pressure to perform or get fired because there's so much extra supply to bring in and do the job. And now the counter argument is, oh, this person has experience, firing him or her, bringing in a new fresh graduate, training will take all the time, blah, blah, blah. And to me, I feel like that's a BS experience, a BS excuse because look, I've worked in different industries. I can tell you very well that if someone is interested to do the job, it doesn't take very long to train that person. If he or she is not interested, okay, yeah, it'll take a long time. But if the person really wants to do the job, it doesn't take very long for that person to learn the job. So I find this excuse very hypocritical that, yeah, but this person has 10 years experience, 20 years experience in this field. Um, yeah, maybe he or she is not as competitive as these new fresh graduates, but they have the experience, and then getting rid of them and hiring a new person will be so expensive to train and all that. That's a valid point, right? Valid excuse. And look, you still have to realize that that card is at the back of every employer's mind. Okay, that idea that the demand for labor is here, the supply of labor is here. Okay, the people who are employed, they're experienced. They can't be easily fired because replacing them will be expensive. But if need be, I can get rid of a 20 years experience person, bring in five people who are willing to combine do the work for less than the salary of that 20 years experienced person, right? And we can train five of them and such lower our overall training cost. That's actually something the employers are doing now in Western countries. And I have a friend in HR in Canada. He was telling me this, which is basically that if they had to, if a person was in, had 20 years work experience but wasn't being as competitive as some of the new fresh graduates, they'll still get rid of that person. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. Okay, they'll get rid of him or her, and they'll hire three or four people in that position, train them all together. So the training cost reduces per head, and four of them combined will cost less than the salary of that one person who's been in the job for 20 years. And yeah, that's actually a phenomenon. And so this supply and demand of labor affects not only the people who are not in the workplace, but also the people who are employed and skilled and experienced and in the workplace. And yeah, I think the end result is you are left with a very artificial cutthroat. Everyone's trying to save their own skin workplace, and that's not a healthy environment. For the workplace, you shouldn't be in that environment under any circumstances unless you desperately need the money. Okay, because that kind of environment where everyone is very cutthroat, trying to save their own skin and trying to, get ahead of any firing by, basically throwing their friends and other colleagues under the bus. That kind of environment will damage you mentally, and it will damage you in a permanent way if you don't get out early. Okay, and trust me, I know this. I've worked in corporate. I got out early, but I think Robert Greene says this very well as, and it's very true. You think nothing's happening. It's just work. This is just competition, but it's not though. Competition is when someone performs well at the job. You try to outperform that person. That's competition. But when you're going behind that person's back, making a false accusations to his or her boss, exacerbating, magnifying their flaws while covering your own tracks, that's just office politics, and that's just saving your own skin and dragging that other person down to elevating yourself in order to, right? That's not competition. Okay, and I think a lot of people fail to understand this. No, but, a lot of people look at that as competition, which is, I think, the fundamental reason why most of these people end up very unhappy. And they realize it very late in life, I believe, and I've seen such people. They think that doing this kind of snakery behavior, snitching behavior, they think this is competition, but it's not. Okay, you're just a bad person. You're just someone who likes to play office politics to get ahead. And the problem with these kind of people is that by the moment they realize this is not competition, it's too late. They're already pushing 40. They've alienated most of their colleagues in the workplace. No one talks to them. And I've seen this, trust me, I've seen this real firsthand working in Canada. And yeah, because they think it's competition, but they don't realize that's just, Debbie Downer behavior. You're just creating a toxic workplace for everyone else. That's what you're doing, really. And yeah, so just understand that, you know, as this imbalance between supply and demand of labor increases, this kind of workplace toxicity will increase. It's not going to go down. It's just going to go up. And workplace is somewhere you go to work every day. Think about it. Okay. A workplace is somewhere you go and spend significant 8 hours, 9 hours. That's like what? That's close to 70% of your time every day. You spend 70% of your everyday time at this place. So you spend close to 70% of your lifetime. Yeah, unless you retire early or what. But basically, you spend close to, if you consider all the assignments you do after work and all the meet calls you take after work, you basically spend close to 50 to 70% of your lifetime at this place called work. Do you really want to spend 70% of your lifetime worrying about whether uh, someone is backstabbing you, whether do you really want to spend 70% of your lifetime working in this cutthroat, toxic environment, which will definitely damage your mental health? It's not going to improve your mental health, that's for sure. And even if you say, oh no, I have narrow mind, this stuff doesn't bother me, well, then you have an issue. And I've seen people like that, who tell me that, Parvez, you're just an emotional kid, and I tell them, look, we're human beings. We're animals. At the end of the day, we are all animals. We have emotions. The fact that this stuff happened at the corporate workplace and you just think it's just another day and it's normal means you're behaving like a robot, not like a human being, like an animal that you are. Okay, let's not forget the fact we're still animals. You can't, at, at the end of the day, we are human beings. We are an animal species. So, as an animal species, as a Homo sapiens, we cannot s- spend 70% of our lifetime as some cold-blooded, stoic, nothing hurts me mentality and expect to be happy for the rest 30% of our lifetime. It doesn't work because it just and I've seen that. Like people who have worked in corporate workplace for a long time, they're basically like that. They're not bad people, but they've become so detached from their emotions that they suffer in their personal lives. And the whole point of job is to enjoy your personal life. You earn some money, you go, you spend it with your family and friends. But if your corporate job forces you to detach from your emotions to a point where you can't um, reattach with those emotions afterward, because that's not how human beings work, that's not how any animal species work. Okay, you cannot tell an animal to um, turn off its emotions at specific time and then turn it on at other time. That's not how any animal living creature works, right? That has these sentient feelings, right? And so a lot of these corporate dudes and also, so-called go-getter women and all the corporate women, they basically suffer in their personal lives. They try to put up a nice facade of, I love my kids, I love my, but look, they're They suffer heavily, and that's when when I saw that, I realized that not only are these people mentally damaged to a point beyond repair, they are not even awake enough to see what's going on. Okay, that's what really frightened me because they're basically acting like robots. I could replace most of those corporate dudes with a chat GPT. Trust me, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference the way they communicated in their emails, in their texts. And my question is like, what's the point then? Okay, fine, you get a job. Okay, fine, you put that shit on LinkedIn. But the whole point of getting a job is to make money and enjoy it. But if you're that detached from your emotions, and yeah, like you're spending 70% of your lifetime detached from your emotions, as a human being, you're not supposed to be healthy at that point, right? You're basically a robot with some blood pumping inside, right? And yeah, that's when I realized that that's not what I want out of my life. Whether I make money, whether I don't make money, I'm fortunate enough to have decent parents who manage their finances well. I manage my finances well as well. And I do some hustle here and there. I'll make some money here and there, different ways. But I realized that I don't want to work in a corporate environment to make some money, but completely destroy my mental and emotional needs, okay? Which are, and yeah, just getting out of that corporate workplace, it took me a while to recover. It took me more than a while. It took me longer than I thought it would. And yeah, it took me close to, I would say it took me like at least 3 to 5 months, I would say it took me to just recover from the workplace. I mean, now that I look back, it doesn't feel so much, it's like, whatever. But the thing is, look, everyone is very cutthroat. Everyone wants to save their skin. And they'll, find a small little detail, a little flaw in you and try to get you fired or basically hold that over you as blackmail so that if they get fired, you can back them up. Yeah, it's very toxic, to be honest. Yeah. And someone tried to do that with me and all that. And, I realized, yeah, I documented everything, reported it to HR, and just moved on because I don't, yeah, I don't like people blackmailing me and holding things to blackmail me, right? And no, neither should you. And yeah, now I'm on this journey. I want to educate the world on finances. I believe I have a good understanding about different financial markets. I've talked about this before. I've been in different financial markets from a young age. So yeah, now I'm on this journey to educate the world about geopolitics, finances. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I might, if I can make some money in the process, I will. And yeah, if you guys like my video, well, don't feel free to subscribe, right? But yeah, let's just coming back to the main point, which is that in my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, getting a job and working at a a job for 20, 30, 50 years, that's very common. And it was actually fun. You actually liked your colleagues, okay? But that's not, that work environment doesn't exist anymore. That's just the truth of the matter, okay? And yeah, so I know, look, your parents want the best for you. They will advise you to be a career man. Don't take risks. Play it safe. Get a family. Blah blah blah. But you have to understand what's best for you. Okay, at the end of the day, you are the master of your destiny. No one else will take blame for your life going wrong. Okay, that's just the reality of life. Okay, your parents can be pushy, they can be easygoing, they can give advice, not do it, but at the end of the day, you are the master of your destiny, and you have to realize that being a career man is not going to get easy anytime soon. On top of that, I believe we're going back to a world of peasants and lords because the middle class is getting destroyed in most countries, especially in the Western world. And you don't want to be in the peasant category when that happens, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. If you work in corporate jobs, you might be in the upper elite peasant categories, but you'll still be a peasant. Okay. You'll basically be a manager level peasant or something like that in the corporate. But yeah, there will be lords of shareholders making tons of profits while paying a meager wage, right? Um, that's the world we're going into. But look, here's the thing. Getting into a business is not going to be easy. Entrepreneurship is never easy. There's obviously risks involved, and it's not for everyone. Okay. And I know that very well. But to be honest, my thing is that there's a very small window in everyone's life where they can take risks, in my opinion. Okay, in order to get into business, do some entrepreneurship, you need to take risks. From what I've seen, the age between 20 to 30 is the most ideal time to take a career, um, to go down a different path, try some business, try some entrepreneurship. Because once you're past 30 years old, now come on, you'll have to now start looking for a partner, you have to start settling down. Kids will, make the process of taking risks even harder. And yeah, once you're once you have kids, you can't take too many risks. Once you're old, you can't take risks either. So the age between, I would say 24, 25 to 35, that's the ideal time to take risks. Okay. And the reason I say it's from 24 is because look, if you're trying to take risks, sorry about that. Hmm. Yeah, so where were we? So yeah, basically, most people actually have a very short window to take risks, at least rational, reasonable risk. I mean, you can still take risks when you have kids and when you're pushing 60, but it would not be the most logical decision to make. And the reason I say you should start taking risks after you reach like 25 and not before that is because, look, before you're 25 years old, let's be honest, you haven't experienced. You need to be at least 25, 26 years old before you can say that, okay, I've experienced enough of life to now take some risks. If you're a 20-year-old guy who just got out of college, high school, you haven't seen anything of life, go to university, you know, fail some courses, retake them, get into some fights, have some wild nights, get into some trouble. And yeah, you're only going to learn through mistake, man. You can't. And look, I understand people complaining about how university is a scam, and I get that. Don't get me wrong. But here's the thing, guys. At the end of the day, when you're going to university, you're not paying money to just attend some classes. You're paying money to make networking, to gain valuable networks with important people or future important people. Okay. And also, you're gaining valuable experiences you wouldn't gain anywhere else. That's the whole point of university. It's not just to get a degree and pass some courses and get some A's. People who do that are stupid. I've seen those people. When I lived in university residence in Calgary, I've seen those people. They'll live on residence, not attend any party, not do anything that'll get them into trouble. Go to class, get A's, boom, 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 boom. And the problem with that is you don't actually learn anything. You don't make genuine connections that will help you later in life. And you don't, people only learn through mistake, let's be honest. You don't learn by getting straight A's in your university courses. You learn through mistakes. And yeah, you only learn through mistakes. So, look, having some wild nights at the university, meeting some interesting people who might come handy for you later in life, that's something money can't buy. Those parties inside the university residence, outsiders were begging to get into, but they couldn't because they didn't have access. We paid high value tuition rent to stay in the university residence to be able to make those networking and get into those parties. And then there were dumb fucks who were living in university residence and not attending those parties and not doing those networking. That's what I tell people. Like, you know, you'll getting those straight A's, you'll basically, you know, you'll go straight to depression later in life. Okay, yeah, you'll get a good job. Then you'll move up the ladder, and then you're in corporate, and then you're dealing with all this office politics. Your mental health takes a hit, and boom, you go to therapy to get some depression pills. Yeah, so those networking is more valuable than any, and that's something money can buy, right? And yeah, that's what I've learned. So if you can go to university, get a degree, get do some corporate work, get into some workplaces, and yeah, see if you like it, if you like work politics. But until you're 24, 25, at least you won't be able to have a good assessment of what life is all about and what you're meant to do. Like, for example, I was always interested in geopolitics from a young age. I never took it as a degree, but I've always liked it. I've always been good at interpretations of geopolitical events, the true meaning, the predictions of what can happen next. I predicted Trump coming to power this time, and yeah, I like it. I like finances, so this is something I'm truly passionate about, and that's why I'm following this dream and working on this channel. I'll make multiple different channels on. I have a chemical engineering degree. I'm good in maths, chemistry. Yeah, I'll make different channels on those in the future, but I want to focus on this education and finance part for now, at least. So yeah, like obviously, being a businessman, being your own entrepreneur, does come with a lot of downside, and one of the downside is that you're basically you don't have a stable source of income, right? So any partner that you might have to settle down with, they'll have to be okay with that, okay? Because a lot of people are not okay with that. A lot of people wants a partner that has a stable income, and I think that's a mistake actually. because I mean, yeah, I think it's a mistake because when you're deciding to tie the knot with someone, to live with someone for the rest of your life, you shouldn't bet on his or her current income, but bet on his or her future potential. Because that's what matters if you think about it. You're going to be living the rest of your life with this person. His or her current income stability should not matter as much as that person's potential for future. And wait, so yeah, you have to ask yourself. And look, I understand why a lot of people don't want to take the risks, right? You want to have a partner with a stable income. Maybe you had a bad childhood, you haven't been around too much money, or you have been around too much money, so you need the money. Uh, it really depends on the person, right? If you're someone who's very entrepreneurial in mindset, who's very business mindset, um, just realize that you have to pick a partner later in life who has same struggle growing up. You can't pick a woman who grew up, in private, traveling in private jets and daddy buying everything she wants because that girl hasn't seen struggle, and more likely than not, she won't be able to live through. Yeah, so as we were saying, so basically, if you're someone who is very business driven, entrepreneurial, and you still might, if you have the desire to get married early in your life, maybe early 30s before you actually make it in your business, then you have to find a woman who has seen real struggle growing up. That's just my take on it. Because any woman from a rich background will not pull through um, on days there's no food in the fridge because there's no money in the bank, right? Yeah, man. You just have to, you know, it's the hustle is real, the struggle is real, and you just have to go through it and never look back. So look, I'm not saying business is all upsides and but just understand that it's all about, look, I talked about this in a previous video, which is that, yeah, so like, look, no one's saying business doesn't come with its downsides. It definitely does, right? You have to go through the struggle and you have to find a partner who's willing to go through the struggle with you. And, you know, unless you want to wait till you're 40 and marry someone who marries you basically for success and money, that's a different story if you want to do that. But there's a lot of risks involved, a lot of struggle involved, a lot of days you might have no money in the bank. That's all true in business. But the upside, in my opinion, compared to the job market and the career market right now, the upsides are far higher in business because even though your mental health is stressed by not having stable source of income, but just the mental health permanent damage that comes from working in a work environment that's toxic, right? And yeah, so you know, and also very few jobs nowadays gives you that 20, 30 year security of working there. And the turnover rates are increasing in every industry. So you really don't have that stable source of income as you think you do. Okay. So yeah. And, and it's just my personal opinion that you're not going to get crazy or significantly rich by having a job. Just because the way the tax structures are set up in most countries, where the governments penalize workers more than they penalize employers. That's why the income taxes are higher than business tax in most countries. And so, if you want to get rich, it's not gonna be through having a stable career. Okay, so yeah, it really comes down to what you want out of life and what kind of BS you're willing to let your mental health suffer. Because no one's saying you have to, like, in your business you still have to be stoic and rational, right? You can't just be an emotional hothead, but you don't have to just shut your mouth up because the HR might wreck you and all that BS. There's none of that. Okay, you are your own master of your own destiny. And yeah, you get to live like a human being. Okay, that's the simple way I can put it. Okay, when you have your own entrepreneurship, your own business, you're no longer a cog in the machine. Okay, a robot that has to do everything the HR does says, even if it makes no sense. And you're not. You're basically a human being, an animal. Okay, what's the point of it? What's the whole purpose of an animal? To hunt, to go out there and chase resources. Okay. When you're working, you're not the one chasing resources. Okay. Someone else is chasing the resources, the owners of the company, and you're just helping them chase, if you think about it. But when you're setting up your own company, your own business, you're the one who's doing the chasing. And so you feel animalistic, and that's why you feel healthy and nice. Okay. You still can be a person that can be in touch with their emotions and still be stoic, don't get me wrong. But you don't have to shut your mouth up because HR might wreck you and all that, corporate BS. You don't have to do any of that. I mean, right? So, yeah, I think, my personal take is, if you're young, take a risk. What do you have to lose? I would say very little. Okay, in the end, you might end up with a nice story. If it works out, good. If it doesn't work out, you might end up with a nice story to tell your colleagues in the future if you want to get back to the workplace. But if you're young, take the risk, get out of that, toxic workplace. Follow your passion, see what you're actually good at. And here's also what's interesting. What you're actually good at is not going to be um, something that you're passionate about. Okay, and this is something I learned the hard way, I would say. So I was passionate about geopolitics and how the global geopolitical events happen, why they happen, what can happen in the future. I was passionate about learning about that. So that's why I read a lot of history books, and that's why I follow geopolitics very closely every day. So I'm still passionate about that. And that's why I talk about it a lot on my channel. But I'm good at numbers and trading. I'm not extremely passionate about numbers and math. I'm not extremely passionate about trading. So that's why I left it. That's why I left trading. That's why I left working with numbers and doing all these probability calculations that you need to do in trading. I just, you know, I left it. Why? Because I'm not passionate about it. Okay. Where will I get the energy um, to put in hour after hour in making videos in something that I'm not passionate about? Sorry, in not making videos, but where will I get the energy to put hours after hours of focus in staring at multiple screens to compute different numbers together to find a way to make money, you know? And I was good at it, but I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't waking up each day say, "Oh, great, I get to look at seven screens at the same time today again." Not really. I wasn't passionate about it. My eyes started hurting at one point because I was looking at so many screens. And yeah, so now I'm focused more on making videos on what I'm passionate about, which is mainly geopolitics. And I mean, finances are part of geopolitics, in my opinion. So I talk about finances as well. So, like, the point I'm making is if you're trying to, take a break from your career, get into entrepreneurship, get into some business, potential businesses, just understand that the difference between what you are good at and what you're passionate about. Because what you're good at will not determine your success. What will determine your success is how passionate are you about it. Okay, you can be like me, for example, me. I have a strong track record in math, with numbers, with trading. I'm extremely good at it, but because I'm not extremely passionate about it, I had to leave that behind. I wasn't passionate about dealing with seven screens in monitors every day to make some money. So that's why I had to quit it because I didn't have the passion drive to keep me going. I'm passionate about geopolitics, and so I understand about geopolitics very well. And this passion about geopolitics has kept me interested in geopolitics from a young age until now. And I can talk about geopolitics literally all day on my YouTube channel, and I won't get tired because I'm passionate about it. And so I think this is the fundamental mistake most people make. They're like, oh, I'm passionate about this, but I'm not good at it, so I shouldn't follow. Big mistake. If you're if you have that level of passion as you claim you do, you will find the energy to be good at it. Compared to some other skill where you might be good at it for a beginner, intermediate level, young person, you might be very good, but you don't necessarily have the passion. What will happen is basically you'll fall off the scale. Okay. Yes, you started well for beginner, intermediate level professions. In that skill, you were very good. You were top of the class, what top 1%. But you were not the masters of that skill. Okay, to be the masters of the skill, you need to be working on that skill year after year for several years, probably close to a decade. But because you don't have the passion, you decide you will not go through a decade working on that skill. So even though you were good at the skill in the beginning, you will not end up being a master of that skill because you don't have the passion for that skill. Compared to the other skill so where you do have passion, you might not be so good at it in the beginning, but you have passion for it. So you have the energy to go through years after years of practice and to be a master of it. Okay. I mean, when people say, a lot of people say follow your passion is a big bollocks. And look, I understand why a lot of people will say you have to be realistic, right? You can't just leave everything and start being a rock star and all that. And And this is also where I believe a lot of people make the mistake because the passion, like, I've heard this especially from older people, which is that following your passion is a BS advice. It's complete garbage. And I think the reason they say that is because for most people, it's true. You shouldn't follow your passion for most people. And the reasoning behind that is that, like, for my friends, if I ask them what their passion is, a lot of them, almost all of them will say gaming, playing video games. How many people make money playing video games? How many streamers make money streaming their video games? It's a very small number. And most of the streamers fall off the stair, fall off the popularity sphere after a few years. You have PewDiePie, he's longer, and now you have a bunch of streamers, okay, on Twitch. They'll be long gone too. And but it's a small number of people who can't sustain the income in the long run. And on top of that, it's a very saturated market. So most of your friends, if you ask them what's their passion, they'll say video games, which is not a bad thing. But when your passion is video games, sorry, let me just look. The problem is when your passion is video games, your passion is unfortunately in a very saturated market with a lot of supply of that passion compared to the demand for that passion. Okay. It always comes down to supply and demand, as we talked about in the labor market. Okay, if your passion is for video games, the supply for that passion is immense around the world, but the demand is nowhere near the supply. And so that's why you will not get good value for your passion. And yeah, you need to be passionate about something in a market where it's not very saturated. The supply and demand balances are still in equilibrium, still close nearby. I believe finance, geopolitics, the demand for geopolitics and good geopolitical analysis, good financial analysis, I believe the demand will just grow. Okay. And the supply is nowhere near. Okay. I haven't said. I mean, yeah, the mainstream medias are trash. Okay. Their interpretation of what's going on around the world is complete trash. And it has to be complete trash because they're controlled by a lot of their, mainstream advertisements and the governments and all that. So I understand a lot of times they have to act stupid in their interpretations of global events. And in terms of like financial advice, I've yet to come across a good channel. I mean, there are a few, I'm not going to give names, but there are, I would say, one or two I came across that gives genuinely good trading and financial advice, but they're not um, very active. Okay, they'll produce a video, go offline for 7 months. You need to be active. You need to, and so I believe that I believe the demand for geopolitics and financial and trading advice will keep rising, but the supply will not be able to pick up with the pace anytime soon. And also, like, just being real, okay? Because especially most of the geopolitical analysis you see on mainstream media, like you can see what the hidden agenda is, okay? If there's a geopolitical event happening in Russia, okay, BBC will be extremely against it, as negative as possible, because they don't like Russia. I mean, you can see what the agenda is. If there's something bad happening in, let's say, Canada, then you'll see nationalistic Indian news channels being extremely um, critical of European or Canadian problems because they don't like Western countries. And so the agenda is very obvious. They don't want to look. most of the news channels, they'll report some facts of, this happened in this place at this uh, part of the world. That part is accurate. But then they go about sharing their interpretation of why this geopolitical event happened. That's where the agenda comes in. That's where they can't act neutral. They can't give a objective analysis of what's going on. Rather, they'll have to give an analysis that basically satisfies their agenda. Okay. And this is where the fundamental problem comes in geopolitical analysis. In terms of financial and trading advice, look, I've talked about this in previous videos. Most people that I know in trading have, they really don't understand the fundamentals of how most financial markets work. And that my initial goal of this channel is to keep making as many videos as possible to just drill into people the basics, understand these offshore tax havens, understand how artificially um, you can stimulate your currency without trading actual goods and all that. Understand how the middle class is getting wrecked. Understand the fundamentals of organically growing our GDP versus artificially stimulating our GDP. These are stuff I've talked about so far in my channel. And the idea behind that is to make people understand the real finances, the finances they won't talk about in the Bloomberg channel or any other financial news channel. Because look, um, most the best, and someone said this to me, and I believe he was extremely accurate, which was that the best trader, the best economists in the world are traders because they put their money where their mouth is. Okay, they make a prediction on an economy, on a future bet, and they put their money on that bet. They put their money on the future economic prediction. And if they make money, they're good traders, and that also means they're good future predictors of economies, and so they're good economists. And yeah, and in order to predict how future economies will turn out, you have to understand the reality, or the dark side of finance, as I call it. Okay, because the finances that they teach you in university, they teach you in your, online, statistical pattern analysis to trade. I mean, sure, I understand the basics of it, all those basic stats parameters, sure, I understand them. But that's not where the big money is made in trading. The big money is made by predicting future economic events, betting on them before everyone else starts betting on them. Because by the time everyone read the news and everyone can see that economic event is happening, the premium has already been priced into the market, and you betting on it at that moment will not work. Okay. And yeah, look, I'll continue to talk about it. I mentioned about probabilities in this video, trading, how probability works in trading. And yeah, I'll make a video on that. Quant traders, as they're called, quant traders from quantitative traders, basically. They use a lot of numbers and mathematical models and probabilistic based models to do their trading. I'll talk about it in one video, but look, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm good with numbers, but I'm not a big fan of trading with probabilities and math models because, in my opinion, it's just a way to explain why you're a shitty trader. That's just how I've met a lot of quant traders in my life, and most of them they just use the mathematical models and the probabilistic models to basically explain why they're a shit trader if they lose money. That's basically what it is. Yeah, I lost money, but I had a good mathematical model, so you can't fire me because I'm not a shit trade. It's really that kind of people who does this quantitative trading. I'm not saying you can't make money. I mean, look, Renaissance technologists, they have the black box mathematical model that Simons came up with, right, in the 80s. But most average people, most average quant traders, they just use this probabilistic and mathematical models as a way to um, avoid accountability when they lose money in trading. But we'll go through an episode. We'll talk about how you can use probability in trading to basically quantify the size of your bet, the odds of your bet. We'll talk about it, don't worry. And yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to talk about this thing I wanted to talk about for a while, which is being a career man versus being a businessman, what you should do, what I've been doing, and um, yeah, next video we'll get into forex trading, and like I said, I'll talk about this probability-based trading as well in another video. And yeah, until then, peace, take care, and you know, enjoy life, take some risks. Okay, YOLO, you only live once, right? So, peace.